The Seychelles started the NIP review late last year. I was appointed the lead consultant for this exercise. And as per previous NIP review, we developed 4 groups to look at the different aspects. One will look at the pesticides POPs, the other one will look at the industrial POPs, one group for institutional and legal, and the other one for UPOPs, unintentional production. So we've had a little bit of delay for setting up the groups. My assignment has already started, so I started putting the report together, even constituting the groups and getting training done with the groups so that they know what to expect. Because I worked on the previous NIP, I have some experience with this. There were some other people that was in the previous NIP review on the groups, so that's a good sign, and they are able to bring their experience as well. So we've had the training done, we've had the inception workshop done, where the stakeholders are made aware of what we are doing, and we've discussed the methodologies of how to do it and the various guidance documents that are available on the website. So the groups are now constituted, they've started their work, and they should be able to submit a report by the end of August. Whereby then I will go through that report and I will ensure that it's consistent, it makes sense, it's according to the guidance, and then we put the inventory together, and after that we develop the implementation plans and the various targets, indicators, and budgets for our NIP. So we expect that by September we should be in a good position to submit a draft NIP. The previous NIP was 2014, 2015, 16. So it was quite a long time ago. And what happened was that this document was not really implemented by the government for various reasons. One of the reasons could be that at that time chemicals was not very high on the agenda for international donors and things like that. So it was put on the back burner. But we tried our best to push some of the activities, especially for the priorities that had been identified. One of which was the law, institutional arrangement, the legal policy. There were no policy on chemicals. There was no legislation, no specific institution identified. There was the Ministry of Health that was in charge of the pesticides. But this included all pesticides, including pesticide POPs, but there was nothing for industrial POPs, and certainly nothing being done for unintentional production. So the main priority in that previous NIP was to have this sort of legislation and policy in place, and so that then we can build upon this. And we are pleased to note that through projects such as the Islands projects, we've been able to create this, develop this policy, and also the hazardous chemical bill, which has been very much supported by the members of the National Assembly and the Cabinet of Ministers in Seychelles. These are very important steps, as you know, to enable the adoption of a legislation. Is that you need to have the support of the Cabinet of Ministers, and then it goes to the National Assembly for approval. So we've successfully in 2025 submitted a paper to Cabinet, and they've approved. They've understood the reason why we need to have this policy and legislation on hazardous chemicals. There has been a spate of also some accidents involving chemicals that has helped us as well to show the importance of this. And we've also had an awareness session with the members of the National Assembly, whereby we've discussed why we need to have this done. And that was also very positive. So as it is now, the chemical bill has already been submitted to National Assembly, but because we are going into elections now, so it's a little bit on hold until after the election. But we don't see any major issues or complication that will stop the adoption of this legislation. So this is one of the important outputs of the previous NIP that we've been able to tackle. And as soon as it's up and running, we will then have the institutional framework around this. One of the things we are proposing is a national hazardous waste platform, which will have experts from various sectors represented, health, industry, private sector, all that, so that they are able to give guidance to government on what chemicals to ban, which one is to be reviewed, etc. Because we cannot limit this legislation only to the Stockholm Convention. There are other chemicals that maybe not be listed in the Stockholm Convention, which are dangerous and will need to be tackled locally. So the hazardous waste platform will have this key function. So one of the other priorities that we identified in the previous NIP was with regards to awareness. And not a lot of people know about these the persistent organic pollutants and the implication. However, we've not been, again, because this is more than 10 years old, we've not been able to implement that. And this is something that we are also targeting under the Islands Project in 2025, where you will see there will be, awareness sessions and case studies and publications done on this topic. I mean, as it is now, people that are importing chemicals, not necessarily persistent organic pollutants, but any chemical, they can import, they go to customs, they file the paperwork, and the information is not captured. We have the Ministry of Agriculture, Environment and Climate Change, who is the competent authority now for environment. They sometimes are roped in to give approvals for importation of some chemicals, but there's no legal basis for this. It can be challenged. So the hazardous chemical bill will put in place this legislative framework that will enable importers of chemicals to declare to the competent authority what is they are importing. Basically, it has to be a hazardous chemical, of course. And so the data will be captured as to who is importing, how much is being imported, and where is coming from, etc., etc. So they will have this information at hand. Right now, when we are doing the NIP review, we are relying on customs information, customs data, which sometimes there's not the right HS codes. They are different HS codes, and it's difficult to really track it. So through the implementation of the new legislation, we'll be able to track better and also have this repository where you can go back to and look up who was importing what, and any permissions granted or permissions approvals denied will be there, so anybody can access that sort of information. This is especially important for Seychelles because we import nearly all of the chemicals that we use, if not all. We do not manufacture anything in terms of chemicals. We do not have a chemicals manufacturing industry. So a lot of the chemicals used in manufacturing, if there are for the limited manufacturing present on the islands, is imported. So it's a good thing because it enables us to have this one point of control whereby we can say, if we regulate the importation, if we know what is being imported, then it's clear that we can protect the environment and human health better because there are no local productions, right? There are no people in the background somewhere on a small hill that is producing something dangerous. It has to be imported. And so the point of import is where we regulate. So this is what I think it will be the main thrust of this legislation, is in controlling of the import, that will facilitate future inventories of hazardous chemicals. However, we have the situations whereby a lot of the chemicals that is listed are imported in products and articles, and without proper testing of products and articles for POPs, it is still a place where we need to focus on. So one of the action that will need to be done is to improve our ability to detect POPs containing articles and products that are entering the country. In terms of the chemical itself, I think it will be fine. We will be able to see who is importing what. For example, pesticidal POPs, you won't be able to import them that are listed. But for the industrial POPs, the products and articles one, this one, we will need to have invest in equipment that we're able to test. And so this will most likely form part of the revised implementation plan, this sort of activities. I cannot speak on behalf of government or because I'm not from the government. I'm a consultant. But from what I gather is that the legislation will have authorized officers. So there will be officers authorized to deal with hazardous chemicals. This is something which is previously not been available in Seychelles. You have authorized officers for other things, but not for chemicals. The the in the awareness sessions that we had with private operators, they were very much interested in being regulated, which is something surprising to us, because they said, oh, you know, it's too open at the moment. Anyone can import chemicals in whichever fashion. We don't like it. It's a problem for us as well. So we said, fine, this is good. It's good that the private sector is behind this bill and they want to see an improvement in the way chemicals are being handled and stored. You know, we are a small island, so it is de facto that some of these chemicals will be stored in places close to residential areas, close to other sensitive zones, such as marine parks or something like that, because the island is very small. So we will have to develop standard and guidelines of how to go about storing hazardous chemicals. Not even, you know, talking about persistent organic pollution, just the normal hazardous chemicals, how to go about doing it. This is one of the key, I think, aspects that will need to be done. And obviously, the government, the Ministry of Environment, the Department of Environment, I should say, know about this situation. They were involved in the inventory that we did. They know the challenges and what they have to do to overcome some of these challenges. And yes, the legislation will list all these chemicals under the Stockholm Convention, including what you mentioned, you know, the PFOS, etc. And the stakeholders that are part of the working group include the Fire Services Agency, and they are the main users of PFOS in firefighting foam from the previous inventory. So within this update, we'll be able to know if they are still importing this sort of foam or not. And then we'll be able to advise, you know, the way forward, whether we continue, how we go about it. But yes, they will have authorized officers to inspect and ensure that the storage are being done properly and that the imports are in accordance to the legislation. However, like I said, one of the challenges that they will need to overcome is identification of POPs in products and articles, and it will be part of the revised NIP to put more focus on that, more emphasis on that. Also, I should say that the actions on the UPOPs, you know, the unintentional production, this part also is one that is very relevant to Seychelles. We have incineration of waste. We have landfill fires, for example, over the past couple of years. We've had a few big landfill fires, and it's something that I know the agencies concerned are trying to prevent from happening. But a lot more action is needed there. A lot more focus is needed there. There are, for example, a pile of used tires. For example, if you are on a small island, what do you do with the used tires from vehicles? You know, so most will landfill it. Some are storing it, and if it catches fire, you have a source of production of all sorts of persistent organic pollutants there. So the activities around UPOPs will be also very relevant to Seychelles. I think it is important. In our experience, we found that you need to be patient with this. It takes time. It is not something which is very easy for decision makers to understand and move on it. So you need a bit of time to educate. That part is important, I believe. And we found that sometimes you need a champion. You need somebody to champion these sort of ideas and push it forward. You cannot just sit back and let it try to roll by itself. You need people to push it. But we've certainly found that it took us 10 years from the previous NIP to have legislation nearly in place for POPs. In terms of capacity, it's an issue on small islands. They do not necessarily have, competent human workforce or equipment or, that can detect POPs. So there needs to be actions on that front as well. You need to develop the people that are in the front line, training and awareness. So these are the sort of activities I call it, baby steps. You need to go through these baby steps. We as a small island state, there's always the pressure that we can jump to the level of an industrialized countries, but that's not possible. We are small island states, so you have to do it according to your means and abilities that you have on the ground. So that is why it's super important, I believe, to continually train people and this sort of communication and awareness. A little bit of what we are doing now, I think, is very important for small island states to be able to discuss the topic and see where the commonalities are with regards to detection, with regards to legislation, policy, and enforcement. And this is where we sort of struggle.